Heavenly Stories.
In the bustling city of Jericho, walls rose high, almost like they were daring the heavens themselves to tumble them down. The streets buzzed with traders, soldiers, and townspeople, each caught up in their own lives, their own fears, and their own ambitions. Amid this chaos lived Rahab, a woman whose name was whispered with both admiration and suspicion. She ran a small inn along the city wall, where weary travelers stopped for food, drink, and sometimes a place to rest their heads. Rahab's life was a careful dance between survival and secrecy. Though she lived among the people of Jericho, her heart often felt distant from the values of the city. She had heard tales of the God of Israel, stories of a people moving through the wilderness under divine protection, and her curiosity had grown into a cautious belief. It was a faith she kept hidden, for openly acknowledging it could mean her death. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the towering walls, Rahab noticed a peculiar tension in the streets. Soldiers marched with hurried steps, voices sharp and urgent. Rumors had begun to spread, Israelite spies had entered the city. Many would have feared for their lives at such news, but Rahab's mind raced differently. She saw opportunity, yes, but also a chance to act in faith. She had heard of their God's mighty acts, the plagues, the parting of seas, the victories that no ordinary army could achieve. And now, here were his servants, walking among her city, vulnerable yet determined. She knew that hiding them could bring death upon herself, but she also felt a pull, a calling, to do what was right, even when the danger was unimaginable. That night, as darkness fell over Jericho, Rahab quietly observed the spies sneaking through the shadows, trying to remain unseen by the guards. Their every move spoke of courage, yet she could sense the weight of fear pressing on them. Her heart clenched. She realized that these men were more than mere wanderers, they carried a mission that could change the course of history. And she, Rahab, held in her hands the power to alter that mission's fate. She waited, breathing silently, until the moment was right. Then, with a mixture of resolve and fear, she approached them, offering words that would soon bind their destinies together. "I know why you're here," she whispered, voice trembling but steady. "And I want to help you." The spies exchanged glances, wary yet desperate. Rahab led them to a hidden corner of her inn, a space known only to her. There, she promised them safety, but she also issued a caution: the choice to trust her was theirs, and the cost of failure could be death. And as they listened, they realized that Rahab's courage was as remarkable as their own, a quiet force ready to tip the scales in a city built on fear. The spies crouched in the shadowed corner of Rahab's inn, listening to the distant clang of Jericho's nightly patrols. Their eyes flicked nervously toward the doorway, each heartbeat echoing the risk they were taking. Rahab, sensing their unease, offered a faint smile, a small, human gesture that carried a strange weight of reassurance. "I can hide you," she said quietly, "but you have to trust me completely. One wrong move, and we all pay." Her voice, though low, carried the authority of someone who had lived through danger and survived. The men exchanged glances, weighing the risks. There was something in Rahab's eyes, a spark of bravery, that made their decision easier. As the night deepened, Rahab led them up a narrow staircase to a room she rarely used. It was small, dimly lit by a single lantern, and mostly empty, save for a few supplies she had tucked away. She pointed toward a pile of old straw near the wall. "You can hide here," she instructed. "The guards don't come up this way. They won't think anyone would be brave, or foolish, enough to hide right under their noses." The spies nodded, grateful yet wary. One of them, a younger man with anxious eyes, asked, "Why are you helping us? What's in it for you?" Rahab's gaze hardened. "Nothing for me," she said firmly. "I do this because I know your God is real. And because sometimes, doing what's right matters more than fear." Silence fell over the room. Outside, Jericho slept uneasily, the city unaware of the tension brewing within its walls. Rahab returned to her routine, moving quietly through the inn, serving meals and speaking briefly with the occasional traveler, all while keeping her hidden guests safe. Each footstep, each gesture, was a delicate balance between routine and deception. As the night stretched on, Rahab shared what she knew about the city's defenses. "The guards change shifts at midnight," she whispered. "There's a gap, just a few minutes, when no one watches the south wall. You need to remember this. It could save your lives." Her words were precise, calculated, but beneath them lay an unmistakable sense of care. For the spies, Rahab's courage was inspiring. Here was a woman, living in a city filled with fear and violence, willing to risk everything for strangers she had only just met. They realized that this small act of faith might be the key to their mission's success. And yet, the danger was real. One false step, one rumor overheard, and Jericho's wrath would fall upon them all. Rahab watched them settle into the straw, their forms tense but trusting, and she knew the coming days would test them all. She had made a choice, and there was no turning back. Her life, intertwined now with theirs, was a gamble that could either bring salvation or destruction. And as the first stars blinked in the Jericho sky, Rahab whispered a silent prayer, hoping that courage, faith, and a careful hand would be enough to carry them through the danger ahead. The following morning, Jericho awoke to the usual clamor of merchants shouting over the streets, children running barefoot across dusty lanes, and guards patrolling the high walls. But inside Rahab's inn, the atmosphere was tense and quiet. The spies had spent the night hidden in the straw, listening to every footstep and whisper, each moment a test of patience and nerve. Rahab moved with practiced precision. She carried trays of food and water, speaking casually to anyone who passed, yet always keeping a watchful eye on the hidden men. Her life had become a delicate web of observation and deception, each thread holding their fate in balance. She knew the risk: one careless word, one glance too long from a guard, and everything could unravel. When the city's leaders began probing for information about the intruders, Rahab's resolve was tested. Soldiers came to her inn, questioning travelers, scanning faces, and demanding details. "Have you seen anyone suspicious?" one of them barked, leaning close enough to smell the bread on her counter. Rahab's heart raced, but she met his gaze steadily. "No," she said, voice calm. "I've seen nothing unusual." The soldiers grumbled, casting suspicious eyes around the room, but they left eventually, convinced by her composure, or perhaps distracted by other matters. Rahab exhaled silently, returning to the spies, who had remained perfectly still, listening to every word. They were alive, for now, because of her courage and cunning. Later that afternoon, she began to speak with them about the city itself, sharing knowledge that only someone who had lived within Jericho's walls could provide. "The south gate is lightly guarded during the afternoon," she explained. "If you time it right, you could slip out unseen. But you'll need a rope, and you'll have to trust each other completely." Her words were practical, but beneath the instructions lay a subtle message: trust in her, trust in each other, and trust in God's guidance. The spies listened carefully, taking mental notes. Every corner of the city, every patrol route, every window and door had been mapped in their minds, thanks to Rahab's guidance. Her courage was not just in hiding them, but in giving them the knowledge and confidence they needed to survive. As night fell once more, Rahab led them to the room at the back of the inn. "You must stay quiet tonight," she said. "Tomorrow, we begin the real test." The men nodded, understanding that their mission depended not only on their bravery but on hers as well. Alone for a moment, Rahab looked out the small window at the city lights. The walls of Jericho seemed imposing, unyielding, yet she felt a quiet determination. Her faith, fragile and unspoken, was becoming a shield, guiding her actions in ways she hadn't imagined. She had chosen to risk everything for strangers, and in doing so, she had discovered a courage she never knew she possessed. The night deepened, and Jericho slept under a heavy silence. But within Rahab's inn, a new plan was forming, one that could alter the course of history and test the boundaries of trust, faith, and bravery. The next morning, the sun rose over Jericho, painting the city walls in shades of gold and amber. The air was thick with the scent of baking bread, dust, and the occasional tang of the river nearby. Rahab moved quietly through her inn, preparing for the moment that could change everything, the moment when the spies would leave the safety of her hidden room and step into the danger of the city. She had spent hours planning, thinking through every step of the escape. The south wall, lightly guarded during the afternoon, was their only chance. "You must follow exactly what I say," she instructed. "One mistake, and the city will swallow you whole." Her voice was steady, but her heart raced. Even with careful planning, there was no guarantee they would succeed. The spies nodded, absorbing every instruction. They would leave the inn at dusk, moving silently through narrow alleys and shadows, avoiding patrols. Rahab had provided them with a rope, carefully hidden under straw, that would help them descend the wall safely. "Tie this around yourselves," she said, demonstrating the knots. "Trust it, and trust each other." As afternoon turned to evening, tension filled the inn. The spies checked their gear, and Rahab moved to the door, peeking cautiously into the streets. Soldiers marched by, eyes scanning for any sign of intrusion. Each passing moment felt like an eternity. Rahab's mind raced through possibilities. What if they were caught? What if her actions brought the city's wrath down on her? She pushed the fear aside, focusing on the task at hand. Finally, the moment came. Rahab led the spies to the south wall under the cover of dusk. "Go now," she whispered. "Be quick, and do not look back." One by one, they climbed down the rope, muscles tense, hearts pounding, every creak and whisper amplified in the silence. Rahab watched, her pulse racing with each movement, praying silently for their safety. Once the last spy touched the ground, she pulled the rope back up, concealing it in the shadows. The streets seemed to hold their breath as the men disappeared into the approaching night, moving toward freedom and the mission that awaited them beyond Jericho. Rahab lingered for a moment, listening to the distant echoes of their footsteps. She felt a mixture of relief and fear, knowing that the danger was far from over. Returning to her inn, Rahab secured every door and window, preparing for the inevitable questions from the city's guards. She knew the spies' escape would not remain a secret for long, but she also knew that she had done the right thing. Faith and courage had guided her, and in protecting these men, she had risked everything to stand on the side of what was just and good. As the night embraced Jericho, Rahab reflected on the events that had unfolded. She had acted with bravery beyond what most would dare, and in doing so, she had become a pivotal part of a story much larger than herself, a story that would be remembered for generations as a testament to courage, faith, and the power of taking risks for what is right. The night after the spies escaped, Jericho felt the usual hum of life, yet within Rahab's inn, the tension lingered. Every sound outside, the clatter of carts, the distant shout of a guard, set her heart racing. She knew the city would soon realize the spies had vanished, and suspicion would swirl like a storm around her home. Rahab called the spies back into the hidden room one last time, this time to make a promise that would protect her and her family. "You've risked your lives for me," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "And now, I need a promise in return. Swear to protect my household when your people come to take the city." The spies nodded, solemn and firm. "We swear by the Lord that we will spare you and your family," one of them said, gripping her hand with sincerity. "Hang a scarlet cord from your window. Whoever stays inside with you will be safe. No one will harm you, for you have shown faith and courage in our eyes and in God's." Relief washed over Rahab, but it was mingled with the weight of responsibility. The scarlet cord, simple and unassuming, became a symbol of salvation. She tied it to the window frame, letting it hang visibly, yet securely, for those who would come to destroy Jericho to see. It was a reminder that courage and faith, even in the smallest acts, could alter destiny. Rahab returned to her daily life as best she could, though nothing felt ordinary anymore. She cared for her family, tended her inn, and kept the scarlet cord visible. Every passerby, every soldier, every merchant seemed to carry a new shadow in her mind, yet she walked with a newfound confidence. Her faith, once quiet and secret, had become a shield. She had chosen to act rightly, and in doing so, she had secured a future for herself and those she loved. The spies moved on, returning to the Israelite camp beyond the hills, carrying with them critical intelligence that would shape the coming battle. They remembered Rahab not just as a helper or a guide, but as a woman of remarkable courage, whose faith had changed the course of events. And Rahab, in turn, carried a deep knowledge: sometimes the smallest choices, decisions made quietly, in fear yet with trust, can have the greatest impact. Her story would live on, whispered through generations, a testament to bravery in the face of danger, to faith when hope seems fragile, and to the power of doing what is right, even when the world around you threatens ruin. And as Jericho slept under the walls she had once observed with caution, Rahab finally allowed herself a moment of peace, knowing that courage and faith had triumphed, and that she had played her part in something far greater than herself. The walls of Jericho had fallen, just as the spies had promised. The Israelite army swept through the city with power and precision, and Rahab's faith, courage, and careful planning had spared her household from the chaos that consumed the rest. The scarlet cord she had hung in her window remained a beacon of hope and protection, a symbol of her daring choice to trust in God and to act boldly, even when fear threatened to paralyze her. Rahab emerged from her inn into a city forever changed. The streets she had once known, the bustling markets, the soldiers' watchful eyes, the narrow alleys filled with whispers, were now quiet or filled with the remnants of the conquered city. And yet, amid the destruction, there was a sense of promise, a reminder that courage could triumph even in the darkest times. Her family stood beside her, safe and unscathed. Rahab had risked everything for strangers, and in return, she had gained protection and a place in the unfolding story of God's people. The spy's promise had been kept, a testament to the bond forged in secrecy and trust. Her life, once limited by fear and survival, now held new possibilities. As the years passed, Rahab became a figure of reverence, not just for her neighbors but for the generations to come. Stories of her courage and faith were shared, reminding people that even those living in danger could choose righteousness and act with wisdom. She had been a woman of humble beginnings, running a small inn along Jericho's wall, but her choices left an enduring mark on history. Rahab's story also became intertwined with the lineage of Israel itself, a powerful reminder that God sees beyond the present, beyond fear and social status, and calls people to acts of faith that can ripple through generations. She had risked everything to do what was right, and that act of bravery was remembered as part of the great tapestry of God's plan. In the quiet moments of her life, Rahab would often reflect on the days of shadows, secrets, and peril. She had been terrified, yet she had acted. She had been ordinary, yet she had done extraordinary things. And in her heart, she carried the knowledge that courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to move forward despite it. Rahab's legacy endured, not merely in the survival of her family, but in the enduring lesson for all who heard her story: faith, courage, and righteous action can triumph over fear, danger, and uncertainty. And that lesson, born from the walls of Jericho, would echo through history as a testament to the power of one person's faith to change the world.